Hello, everybody. This is Anna and Brian from Amata World podcast, and today we have our next guest for gaming episodes, Daniel Clothiaux, who is a indie game developer who is using generative AI. Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. And maybe can you give a quick introduction to yourself and your background so our listeners know your story?
Yeah, so in undergrad a long time ago, I did math and then worked in AI before anything worked very well. Like before transformers were a thing, when translation apps were still really bad and language models would produce like incoherent strings of text. And I got kind of frustrated, left to work in bio for a while. And then when I was gone, AI started to, things started to work again, like for the first time. And I got back into AI around that time. I've been working on an indie game for the past 7 or 8 months now. It is online at Tower Crawl, and we have another platform we're experimenting with called Wyrd, W-Y-R-D.
Nice. And can you tell us a bit more about sort of why you got into this little project and what inspired you? And have you always been sort of a gamer that's into this genre? Maybe you could, tell us a little bit more about Tower Crawl and what it does so people know.
Yeah, so
what it is.
We got into this by we were just experimenting with AI tooling, with little AI apps, and just seeing what got traction. And for one of them, we built a tiny little game engine where we took the chat loop and just put a little bit more structure around it. So we had that, and then we had you do an action and a dungeon master evaluates what happens from the action. And this ended up being one of the most popular little apps we tried to build. So we ended up just rolling with it for that reason. But I have played quite a bit of games in the past. When I was younger, I was very much into strategy games, history games like Paradox Interactive, if you're familiar with them. And then I've played quite a bit of sort of the classic role-playing games, like BioWare and Obsidian back in the day, like KOTOR, like Knights of the Old Republic for Star Wars, Jedi Empire, that type of thing.
And what kind of feedback? What was the reaction of people when they firstly tried it?
So a lot of it was just look at this really cool thing I did. I just broke the AI in this way. This is really funny. Part of it was we had some players. So one of the things we really tried to work on is building enough structure around it that the world stays somewhat coherent. And we still have a long way to go, but we'll do something we have an inventory we track a normal role-playing game would track. So you have your list of items that you have on you. And if you make a new item, we will generate an item and add it to your inventory. And we've had players give us feedback, one of the players says they really like being told no by the dungeon master. If they try to do something impossible, it will just be you fail and you look like an idiot. And we've had other players tell us stuff they appreciate being able to just craft whatever they want and then have it stick around and feel fairly comfortable that it's there in their inventory. It's not something that if you're familiar with using ChatGPT a lot and you have a really long conversation, it'll start to forget things. The coherence of the conversation sort of drops a bit as it gets too long, and it's nice that it stays around.
So you kind of mentioned there's a world behind Tower Crawl. Maybe you could describe a little bit more about maybe the setting behind the game, and maybe also try and describe how a person would sort of experience the game, how they would play it.
So right now the setting is just fairly generic fantasy. You have a tower you have to ascend, and there's just challenges you have to complete to do that. And then we have some open world levels where you can just go freely explore. And to be completely honest, at the beginning, we did this just because we are not world builders, we are not writers. We were very much working on the technical parts of the engine. So we just put something fairly generic out there to see how people reacted. Then for what the game is itself is, you have sort of a fairly standard screen for a text-based adventure game where you have text that you are reading, which sort of describes what's happening. You have your character information on the left and sort of environment information on the right, who's in the scene that you're in at this time. So sort of old school text-based games. Then the newer thing is you have a text box where you just enter whatever action you want to take. And when you enter that action, we have the dungeon master sort of decide the outcome based off of, your attributes. It'll look at your strength. It'll, for example, if you're trying to arm wrestle somebody, it'll look at the strength of the person you're trying to arm wrestle, and it will try to determine what happens based off of that. And then once it does this, it sort of updates the game world around you. So if you, win an arm wrestling contest and you win like some money off of it, it will add that to your inventory. Or if you lose, it will remove that from your inventory. It will like update entities in the environment to keep track of them and sort of things like this. So we're really trying to like couple standard game mechanics with what, generative AI offers in terms of like user flexibility.
But like, so usually if you're doing something creative, especially like in game industries, right now, if you're using AI, sometimes it's like a bit polarized. Some people viewing it as kind of like evil. Some are just like, oh yeah, it's actually adding additional possibilities that they were not able to do before. So what kind of like AI unlocks for you, and how do you think you will actually like, do you talk with some of the creatives as well to show that there is additional possibility that they can use right now rather than just like block it off? There's like actually the new world you can open up.
So kind of yes to both. So to sort of handle the first one, a lot of the possibilities it enters around user freedom. Some of them are like very obvious, like you can enter whatever you want to do and just try to do crazy things. And like most game engines don't have this. And the ones that do, like the newest Zelda game, feel really special because you can sort of cobble things together and just do completely crazy things. And part of it is sort of coming at it from another perspective. For example, if you're familiar with tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, this offers something similar where you can sort of do whatever you want to do with your playgroup. But then this has other both benefits and drawbacks. Like the social side is both very fun, but it also constrains what you can do as a player. Like a lot of playgroups will get understandably annoyed with you if you try to do something stupid that will like ruin the adventure, or if you try to do something that will like take too much attention. And like this is completely fair. Like you should try to balance these games between like attention between all of the characters. But with generative AI, it sort of like lets you get this type of flexibility, but you can just do your own crazy thing and like go as hard as you want on that and like, not worry about pissing off your 5 friends because you're, I don't know, talking to some gnome for too long or something. So I think there's like a huge amount of possibility and exploration that this types of, AI-powered games can unlock. I think another really big one is in a lot of traditional role-playing games, they offer choices, but the choices are like somewhat illusory. So, for example, many games will offer like good and evil systems, and you can do good and evil choices. But then no matter what choice you take, the storyline still takes the same arc. And that feels like that's very understandable from a game designer's perspective. Because like you can only develop so much. It's really hard to develop like 5 separate, entirely different storylines. But from a player's perspective, it feels like very constraining. I did this like, very good or very evil action. Why does the world look almost exactly the same at the end?
I remember even like, what was it? Bandersnatch on Netflix. They were just like, I tried different options as well. Just like, but it's like ended up with the same. It's like, why? But yeah, I was kind of even curious, like from the text space, do you think at some point you will go to more like visual? Because of like generative AI will allow you to like immerse and like create this kind of like worlds, like on the go.
Yeah, I think this is definitely something that people are working on, will be working on a bit of it. You could imagine at the extreme end, like some sort of generative VR game that like sort of creates the entire world as you play. We are very, very far away from that. At the moment, we're just experimenting much more with like, we integrate image gen and we generate a new image every turn if you, check the checkbox and are willing to pay for it. And that like makes the game a little bit more immersive. Another thing we're working with is generating assets for items in your inventory. We can have it so that you create some new crazy artifact and we generate a little, icon for that and we stick that in your inventory. Or like you
this
put
is
on
so
a new
cute.
Yeah. You put on a new outfit and we regenerate your character art with the new outfit on. Just stuff like this. So I think we're currently at the stage where we're experimenting with very simple things. I think it'll get much more advanced, but, simple things first.
So could you share with us some of the challenges maybe that you faced while developing something like this? Because I imagine, it can, something like this can quite easily, or it's very hard to keep under control. So like, what are sort of the challenges you face trying to, keep the world consistent? Like you said, AI doesn't really work well over a long context, tends to forget things.
I think we have sort of 3 or 4 main challenges. One of them is simply, like you said, you have to get things out of the AI, and there's a lot that you want to get out of the AI. So right now we have the inventory out of the AI, we have your HP and resources, we have the environment out of the AI. But there's a lot of stuff that we just haven't gotten out of the AI, and it's just like literally due to not having enough time to do it. One of these is like skills and abilities. Like ideally this would not be part of the AI. You'd have your own little like skill tree thing, and this would be tracked separately. And this is something we just haven't implemented yet. And I think there's a ton of things like along these lines where if you try to build more and more structure, the game's going to feel better and better. But it's just like a lot that needs to be implemented. I think another big challenge that we've had is sort of challenges with language models. And there's sort of a couple of these. Like one of these was cost. Over the course of development, I think we got the cost down by about 10 to 50 times. And doing this was like very not trivial. Like by far the easiest thing to do is to use like, as big of a language model as possible, GPT-5 in thinking mode, whatever. But that ends up making every turn really, really expensive. So just like trying to iterate, get our cost down as much as possible, ended up being a big challenge. There's other challenges with language models. Language model companies love to update their language models without telling you. So we'll have users sometimes report, something broke, and I look onto why it broke, and it's like our language model provider updated the language model in the background, and just we have to go back and fix things. Then sort of the third big class of challenge is kind of like game design related challenges. So to give an example, in Dungeons and Dragons, one of the things a very good game master will do is they'll let you play the game at different scales. So if you're in a dungeon fighting a boss, you'll have action points very often. Like it's, I do my attack, the boss does something, what do you want to do next? But if you're in the town preparing for an adventure, it's sort of like, we're going to go buy these 5 things, and this is just done really, really quickly. And there's a lot of things like that where just sort of putting more thought into how should you do the game design, what would be the most fun to play. I think you get a lot of benefits from doing that, and that is also just a big challenge. I've especially found that a lot of the sort of things that good DMs use in D&D is like very sort of implicit knowledge. Like people just do it a lot and they get really good at it. So it's sort of hard to find often like all of the different dials of game design you need to use in something like this.
And so, for example, the community in this case, do they have a say, for example, on what kind of like worlds that they want to see in the future? Because in this case, it feels more like personalized if you're using generative AI to make it more.
Yeah, so we started off by just building like a generic fantasy world. But one of the things we were working on recently is a platform where you can design your own games using our engine and put them online. This is very much in the alpha phase, but I think there really is something where the community can sort of craft the worlds that they are interested in and get to play in them, because the technology is like very general, right? Like ChatGPT is smart on far more things than I am smart at. So I think there's like a huge scope for community interaction, for like players being able to sort of design the levels they want, but also getting like a lot of help in doing so.
Because I started thinking about even like Game of Thrones, where they had a lot of just at the end, because the fans, they're like, we don't like this ending. So maybe in the future there would be a possibility to collaborate with some of the brands and give this them what they need, like the fans, what they wanted to see at the end, like some different IP, different universes, like what are the possible kind of alternatives that could have played out in the on the way.
Yeah, that is definitely something we are very open to. So I guess if you're a listener and you're in a big IP, you can reach out. We're definitely down to talk. But more seriously, I think there's a ton of scope for this type of things. Like, you have your favorite media, now you get to live inside of it. You previously people would write fanfic, but there's not much more you could do.
So kind of be more a part of that rather than just observer. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
So curious, do you have any sort of because you have a kind of active player community trying out the game, was there any kind of sort of interesting ways or unintended ways that the players have sort of interacted with the game that you didn't think of, but it turned out, I guess, evolved to something a bit more interesting and maybe built into the game? Do you have any similar stories to that, or something you're thinking about?
Oh, yeah, we have a ton. I constantly just get surprised by what our players do. Probably the biggest was we first released a challenge level, get past the dragon, and a third of the players just tried to turn it into an open world game. They're I go deeper into the cave and try to explore the underground world so I can keep playing an open world game in this game engine. I don't really care that much about the dragon. And so a big part of what we're doing with building more open world levels and now the level creator is literally just seeing what our players do with the game. Where it's we gave them some tools and they want to use the tools in super creative ways. They don't want to some people want to play challenge levels, but many players don't. And yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I was but do you have any kind of advice on how to actually create a community around the indie game? So, for example, if I'm developing a game and I want to create a community around, what are the first steps in done?
So, the first steps are super simple. Make a Discord server and put a link to the Discord server everywhere on your website, and then redirect people to that. And we found with just that simple, we haven't done a ton more active efforts in getting people to join, but we still have over our server's not huge, but we definitely have over 100 people who just came in from doing the very, very basics. And I think people like to be in a community, so if you have something cool and you have a community, people will come.
I think it's just some people were actually mentioning, apart from the Discord, there was a possibility to do something on even Telegram, or just to put a teaser or some a small game where you can actually play on the platform itself. So yeah, definitely socials are helping.
That would be a really cool idea. I haven't thought about that type of approach yet.
Yeah, I guess something like a platform that you're building might be well suited to that, because you can plug and play as well.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Yeah, I was also thinking I'm curious, has the community sort of made any kind of, what is their biggest I guess feature that they're looking forward to? Because this game is still kind of under development. Do you notice any kind of, I guess, trends in what they're kind of looking for? Maybe they're expecting out of a game like this?
Yeah. I think some of the biggest things they are looking for right now, one of them is just more open world levels, more freedom in what they can do. One of them is we've had people ask specifically for character history. So speaking of taking things out of the LM and putting them into the superstructure of the game, a huge one is character history. You've met these 10 characters, your relationship with them is such and such, here's some history you have with them. And we've had a lot of players play through levels, meet characters, and then go back and we don't have this yet, and they're just very sad that, And then they come up with all sorts of creative hacks to remember. They'll have a notebook, a journal, and they'll have the character record everything in the journal they want them to remember and tell them they're in a weird scenario, and then they'll come back to the character with the journal in the future so they can pick up the relationship from the same place.
I just think that sounds like a really interesting, I guess, feature to the game. Maybe kind of related to that. Is this kind of like an adventure game where you're managing just a single character, or can you also sort of manage maybe a small team, or can you play with your friends? Is there kind of a sense of multiplayer in this game, or is that something coming in the future? You know?
We have like only very simple multiplayer features. We just like implemented trade recently. We definitely want to do more multiplayer. I think there's like a ton of fun things to be done here. Like one of the very simple ones is like you get in the game with your friends and you each have your own little chat boxes and you each do your things, and then like the AI sort of like takes what happens and turns this into a narrative of your party fighting the dragon and not just you fighting the dragon. And I think this is something that's like definitely technically feasible. It's something like we definitely want to get to.
I think the kind of the aspect of playing with your friends at the same time, because even like in the normal chat, like when you're with friends, you can spiral so many different ways just because if you're on the same wavelength, it's just like what. So yeah, this is definitely could be like a good kind of an add-on. But like I think in terms of any other kind of like additional advice, if you can leave for the indie game developers and as well those who want to use AI in their games which is already probably like developed, like do you have anything to add to that?
I think one thing for using AI in games, just like thinking hard about like and looking into what is already being done in traditional types of games, I found to be very fruitful. So if you're making like, I don't know, an AI powered war game or something, like look into how traditional war games handle that. Or same thing for like a romance visual novel or something, like look into the techniques that are already being used, because like a lot of these transfer very well, like transfer surprisingly well.
I think maybe just like if we can dive a bit into like your hopes and predictions for the future of like the gaming industry as well, and like how AI can actually affect that in the future, and as well as your own like games. What do you think? What do you expect? What are you looking for? And if we as a community, how we can help you as well, like to make it happen.
So I guess to start with the gaming industry as a whole, I have both like a lot of hope and some fear. I guess the thing I'm worried about is just if we get like really good sort of addictive AI experiences that feels like games but are kind of just slop. You can imagine like sort of the trend towards gacha games with like very pretty characters and not much depth to them, and just sort of like crank it up to 15 with using, you get your customized like gacha characters which are designed to make you as like addicted as possible or something. And I think there's a chance we could end up somewhere like that, and I think that would be quite bad. On the flip side, I think there's like a huge amount of scope for creativity and interesting things to be done with games. And even without AI, I think we've seen really creative indie games in the past like 5 years or so, and sort of really stretching what you can do with like games as an experience. And I just really hope we build things that are like, meaningful, that help us connect with other people, that give us like deeper experiences. And I think we can. We just have to build it.
And what about your own kind of like games?
About
what are you
ours,
hoping in the next one?
So the sort of like crazy moonshot dream is we managed to build an awesome game platform and all sorts of, we have a ton of users building cool games. We have a bunch of people with their own IPs working with us to create games, sort of like a Roblox style thing with massive amounts of users, massive amounts of fans, whatever. I think more realistically in the short term, I hope we can both build like, I think the game engine as it stands has a lot of promise, and I hope we can sort of like build out enough features to realize this promise, and that then we have like enough people playing and enjoying our game that we can continue to do this.
Cool. And I think that's probably a really good place to end the podcast. So leave the last minute for yourself, Daniel, for any kind of last words, or if people are interested to find out a bit more about sort of Tower Crawl, your project, and how can they find out? Where can they find you guys?
So if you want to take a look, we have 2 things up right now. One is Tower Crawl. It's at tower-crawl.fun. We have another, which is our experimental platform, which is Wyrd. It's at wyrd.gg. If you go onto either of these and try them out, you'll get some free credits. We have ongoing beta tester programs, so if you want to help us test the game and sort of, decide where it's going to go in the future, you can join those. We have an active Discord, you can come there. And then we are looking for people to partner with us. So if you are interested in seeing your world in a sort of narrative adventure game, reach out and come talk.
Amazing. I think it's just like I want to add one more kind of question that sometimes they like asking our guests. For example, this project that you are doing right now, and like gaming and AI, what kind of problems in the world you think it can actually like sort out? You mentioned there's just like bringing people together or something. Like what are your the core, usually when people are doing something and they're passionate about, there's some kind of like either pain or they can see that there's an issue and they want to sort it out. And so what's yours?
I think for me personally, I just want to see like as much fun and creativity as possible. Like I get a lot of joy about seeing our players do crazy things and post on Discord and be like very happy about it. And like this is just so much fun to see. Like I really like it, and if I could just see like more happy people. Like there's a lot of problems in the world. There's a lot we need to solve, but like a big part of life is to enjoy it. And
enjoy it. I think it's just like most of the time we're kind of like forgetting when we're growing up, like something about our inner child. We're kind of like losing on the way. So probably that will keep it alive. Like in our like 30s, 40s, and 50s. So be more playful. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this episode with us. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was great to be here.
It's the pleasures are ours. And to all listeners, thank you for listening to this up to this point, and have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.